are with this. So we're going to continue with the assignment that I posted on Monday, right? And we're going to continue with this. I haven't put a due date for it yet. We're going to figure that out at the end of today once I see how far people have gone along with this. It will probably be, let's see. The due date will probably be like, so not this Saturday, but on the 24th or something like that, right? Even though it's a while out, but I mean, I figured that since there might be a lot of, the last part of this might give you a couple hiccups, okay? So, but nothing too bad. So the schedule is as follows, or at least the tentative schedule is as follows. We are planning on doing, so here's the schedule as follows. So on the 23rd is going to be your second time lab. So the 23rd, so not this week, but next week, your next time lab. Furthermore, your next exam will most likely be on the 30th or on the 6th. Don't groan. The 6th is my birthday, so you know. But on the 30th or on the 6th. Now, the week of the 26th, I will be out, but that means no reprieve for you. So those days, the 26th and the 28th, will be yet another in-class pairwise assignment for you guys to work on. And we're currently working on finding some assignments that would be really exciting for you to do, and really enjoyable. I'm trying to go for, now that we can actually do stuff, I'm trying to move us away from the late work assignment and more towards the fun stuff. So over here, I might give you the Game of Life program that I typically give around this time. So what will the exam on the 30th focus on then? Because really all we've learned that is new is arrays and file reading. Well, a bit of file reading, but not much. Like, I'm just going to ask you, like, maybe how you would do some stuff with Scanner. But it's really no more than what things you would do with reading files are really no more than you would do with reading an array for the most part, or reading strings. But the main focus of these are writing. This next exam is typically writing methods and writing arrays. If you push it back to the 6th, it will include objects, which is the next big portion of this. Because believe it or not, we've kind of actually not been using Java as it was most intended to be used, which is as an object-oriented language. And right now we've been using it as a purely procedural language, which means do this, do this, do this. And then when we go to objects, we do that a bit more, but with objects, really. So, okay, so a couple things that I just had to note as caveats that I haven't had the chance to go back and correct in the write-up. Okay, for this. So the first thing is that when I blatantly stole this from someone, from the original author of this, I forgot that it was basically language agnostic, and I mentioned this last time, but I figured it's valuable to mention it again. This was language agnostic, so he wrote this in, and that's just not valid Java syntax over here, right? So instead, imagine that basically you had an array called tally that had this stored in it. Okay, so to test that, make an array that holds these values, and then store those values in tally and put tally in instead of over here, instead of this array over here. You can't call arrays like that. Not in Java, at least. Okay, the second thing, which was brought up to me by someone who got quite far ahead, which was read integers from a file and returns an array of numbers suitable as input, right? So the question was, well, how do I know how many numbers are in the file? And so there's a couple, and the answer is great question, which is really the biggest answer I can give to you, because the answer to how do I know how many numbers are in the file, you have to there's a couple ways you have to do that. First, you pretty much have to figure it out yourself in one of a couple ways. The first is to just know how many numbers are going to be in the file by only making the program work on only one file, which is boring, but it works. So if you know how many numbers are going to be in the file, that's fine. But the way you would probably have to do that if you wanted to actually be a real program that works on basically any data set is that the first thing you'll have to do is open up this. You'll have to create two scanners. The first scanner goes up and it runs and it just counts the number of lines in the file, assuming that there's basically one line per one number per line. Okay, so we'll just count the numbers in the file like that. And then the second one will actually go through and read them. Because remember, in order to store those numbers, you have to actually have an array that can hold them. How big do you need to make the array? Well, that needs to be equal to the size of the numbers. How do you know how big to make that array? Well, first you have to figure out how many numbers there are. So it's kind of a circuitous thing. So first thing you have to do is count the numbers, then go back with a new scanner and count the second number of numbers. Why do you need a new scanner? Well, because once you get to the end of the file with scanner, it thinks it's done, so you can't go back and recount it again. So you'll need a new scanner to go through that. Okay? All right. So that's the other problem there. But basically, I'm giving that one to you to see how ingenious you can be about that. I'm looking forward to see your solutions. Once you get to this point, the point 3.1 and 3.2, we're much more lenient on how you solve those, right? Right, you've got a lot more leeway to solving these because these are a bit more abstract than doing, the review questions. So again, the point distribution for these parts on our problem is section 1, 35 points. So doing all the stuff that you should know already, 35 points to write those methods. Then 35 points on the array practice problems. Okay. Then it will be so that's 70 points so far. 20 points for reading data and main working correctly, and then 10 points for this analysis and observation stuff. So you can get an A while completely bombing this last part, but to get the full 100 points, you need to do this last part where you're examining the data set and actually doing some data analysis, which is which is like examining how do the numbers actually work. And remember, as I mentioned at the very beginning of this thing, what we're really interested in is the distribution of the initial digits in a set of data. So how are the digits in a set of data, the initial digits, in other words, the leading digits of numbers in a set of data, distributed? And the answer might surprise you, because if you look at the least significant digits, the one on the end, right, those should pretty much be random. The least significant digits are pretty much randomly distributed. But what distribution do the leading digits, the most significant ones, follow? All right, so I think that's enough of me blathering on about this. So I will be around to help people at the various points they're stuck. So will the TA. The TA will be able to, go around and help people with these. So I will, and I'm sorry about being tardy on, there being a couple days to lag on uploading the recordings. It's been it unfortunately means I have to actually sit down somewhere and have my computer going for a couple hours, and it's just been really hectic these last 2 days. I haven't been able to do that. So they're uploaded now for the people who need them. All right, so that should do it. All right, so.